Hello, my name is Thomas Shields. In this video presentation, I wanted to explore how online resources can give insight into a culture, more specifically, the culture and processes surrounding playing the didgeridoo. My plan is to draw comparisons between my journey with the didgeridoo and the principles of playing the didgeridoo the way it was intended, and answer the question of whether one can truly understand and appreciate an instrument and its culture through online resources. Welcome to my didgeridoo journey. The didgeridoo is one of the oldest wind instruments in the world, and when looking at the construction behind the instrument, it's easy to see why. Making a didgeridoo is fairly simple. Termites hollow out an old eucalyptus tree, and then any excess left within the wood is cleared out by ramming a hot metal rod through the branch. Beeswax can be used to create a seal with the lips, but is not inherently required in the process. My didgeridoo creation was a little different, since I didn't think UCSD would appreciate me chopping down any of their eucalyptus trees, and since I wasn't going to have eucalyptus shipped to me, I went to the internet for an alternative. I sorted through a lot of videos on PVC didgeridoos, and while some had more unconventional designs, I settled on as traditional a design as I could. I cut my PVC to a 4-foot length, sanded the outside, heated and tapered the end, and finally heated and sealed beeswax over the other end. Okay, my dad did most of it, but I recorded it. It was here that I found the first difference between my experience and the true traditional experience of playing and constructing a didgeridoo. While many resources I found listed PVC didgeridoos as a cheap alternative, one video in particular took a hard stance against using PVC. A man by the name of Evan Whirlwind made a short video on why he didn't believe PVC could replace traditional wood, stating that because the desire to play the didgeridoo came from within, that one could not properly express this inner connection with something synthetic.
You are actually working on your own personal balancing. And therefore, the vibration of the didgeridoo has to be something that is in harmony with nature.
At first, I brushed this off, given that his channel also included videos with titles such as Orgasmic Explosion, The Ideal Body, and Why Women Should Not Play the Didgeridoo. Yet, the more I thought about it, the more I realized he did have a point. My approach to the didgeridoo wasn't one of spirituality, as it should be, but one of mere interest in academics. While I could be conscious of this distinction, I felt that I could never truly play the didgeridoo traditionally unless I felt that spiritual connection. Moving on to actually playing the instrument. As I began to play the didgeridoo, I was unprepared for the amount of practice I would need. I can play many instruments. I can play the clarinet, the trumpet, the guitar, the piano, and I can make some very awful sounds with my dad's bagpipes. I thought the didgeridoo would be similar to other woodwinds, but what I found was that it requires an entirely different type of performance.
If you blow it hot like a trumpet, sounds pretty terrible.
With no holes to play keys with, and such a large opening for air, the didgeridoo requires the lips to be extremely loose to reach the proper sound. I practiced for over 2 hours before I got the correct sound, and had to access multiple videos outlining specifically how to blow properly. It was during this time that I found myself building a connection with the videos I was watching. Playing the same 5-minute video over and over made me feel like I was actually sitting there with a tutor who was relentlessly trying to get me to perform properly. It reminded me of my days sitting with my old trumpet tutor, but to be honest, the videos were much more helpful than he was. As I compare this to how the didgeridoo might have been taught traditionally, I found striking similarities. Yes, there may have been a screen between myself and my mentor, but as Kiri Miller outlines in Playing Along, there is no real distinction between the real and digital world when someone takes their experience from watching a video to mimicking the practice shown. At the end of the day, I was observing and mimicking a mentor, just as someone might do if their family member or tutor was teaching them to play the didgeridoo right next to them. And while I may not have mastered circular breathing, I found very little difference between my playing and the sounds of my online mentors, despite my didgeridoo being PVC and theirs being wood. I think that means that I can safely assume that yes, I was playing the didgeridoo. After I had passed my initial goal of merely playing the didgeridoo, I began to reflect on my experiences. In my reflection, I noticed the division between didgeridoo content on the web. Unlike other examples of cultures or subcultures with internet presence, like Zeph culture, there was no cohesive didgeridoo culture. Sources that taught how to play had very little to do with spiritual and cultural aspects, and some more modern sources, like dubstep didgeridoo, street performance didgeridoo, and orchestral didgeridoo, sacrificed both forms of instruction for the sake of showcasing the instrument's sound and modern applications. It felt like my mentors were merely a case of some sort of internet assimilation, in which the spirituality of the didgeridoo had been sacrificed for instruction. And as I looked back, I couldn't tell whether this was because of necessity to try and hook people in on the didgeridoo, hoping they might delve themselves into the cultural aspects, or if it were done for the sake of simply selling the other, attempting to get people to click on the video and making the playing as straightforward as possible, solely for selling some sort of cheap party trick. In an odd way, I felt cheated, like some gross consumer. Yes, I had reached my goal of playing the didgeridoo, but at the same time, I had sacrificed really embracing any sort of cultural aspects. I felt like I was no longer really connecting with the instrument, just as I had been warned by Evan Whirlwind. Then, I decided to delve a little further into the internet, and here I found my singular resource that I felt really touched on all aspects of the didgeridoo, a website from the early 2000s called Digimen's Domain. The website was clearly old, and based on some further research, it seemed that it was both created and maintained by one person, a man by the name of Matthew Harris. The website outlines almost every aspect of the didgeridoo, from its origin to construction, and even tips for playing the instrument. The information was definitely helpful, and the visuals had a very early internet charm to them. It was here that I began to change my mind about my experience with the didgeridoo. Yes, I may have missed some spiritual aspects of the didgeridoo, but there were others that I believe that I did touch on. I would never be able to connect to the didgeridoo as much as an indigenous Australian might. As much as I could learn about the Dreamtime stories, old Australian folklore about the time before time, I could never emotionally connect my playing of the didgeridoo with it, nor could I connect the didgeridoo with any ceremonies. But I began to think about the resources I had accessed. Yes, maybe some of them were motivated commercially, but people like Evan Whirlwind and Matthew Harris seemed to have a genuine love for the didgeridoo. In this sense, I began to understand a different spiritual element to the didgeridoo as a personal instrument, as an instrument that one creates on their own. As cheesy as it sounds, I felt, and still feel, an odd personal connection to my didgeridoo. The pride I took in building it, my excitement with hearing the first drone, my frustrations with circular breathing. These were all things I shared with other didgeridoo players. Evan Whirlwind had that experience. Matthew Harris had that experience. David Hudson had that experience. My own mentors had gone through the same thing that I had. And I have a strong belief that young tribesmen likely felt the same thing on their own journey with the didgeridoo, both past and present. With this, I am confident in saying that I properly experienced and learned how to play the didgeridoo. My experience with the didgeridoo was a unique one. I find a strong connection to the didgeridoo, stronger than the other instruments I've played. I can really understand why people feel this strong connection to the didgeridoo, this strong spiritual connection. The experience of building the instrument and learning to play it from the ground up is really unique, and having all the control coming from within, coming from your own voice and vocal box, really gives you a feeling of control. It gives a feeling as though you are the instrument, and the didgeridoo is merely a tool for expression. I had a blast with the project, and I'm hoping that this video shines some light on how online resources are a useful tool for learning and experiencing an instrument, especially one as unique as the didgeridoo. Thank you for watching.